Welcome to Football Today, team profiles and projections. And today we're looking at the Green Bay Packers, who came in our power rankings at 11th after a 9-8 season. It was the tale of two halves for the Packers last season, right? You know, we'll look at overall stats: 12th in scoring, 5th in EPA per play, defensively 10th in scoring, 23rd in EPA per play. Matt LaFleur's 6th year, like he's right up there with the longest tenured coaches in the NFL, or not with the longest, but you know he's one of the guys. You know, Adam Stenovich, his 3rd season as OC since Hackett left. And then one of the low-key biggest moves of the offseason, Justin, was the fact that they decided to fire Joe Barry, maybe a year or two late, and hire Jeff Hafley, who was Boston College's head coach last year. This team, and more importantly, Jordan Love, got hot, and had a mini playoff run, and is now the youngest and one of the most exciting teams in the NFL. And there's so much to like, Justin. But the natural instinct in me is I'm not like 100% sold on Jordan Love, even though I'm excited about Love. I agree with the Packers giving him that contract. But is there any part of you who's like, that last 10 games, including the playoffs, was amazing, but the first 9 games wasn't good at all? So, like, is there any thought of, like, Love not turning into a bad QB, but not being as good as the vibe is around him right now?
No, I'm all in.
All in, okay.
I'm all in. Because the things that they did in the second half of the year and in those final 10 games where they went 7-3 after starting 2-5, I think there are things that are sustainable. There are some things that will come down due to regression. Like, for example, in goal-to-go situations, the Packers were 95%, had a 95% touchdown rate. That's insane. When they got
you can't reproduce that.
You're not going to reproduce
that.
and replicate that. There's some questions with the offensive line. There's a question on Josh Jacobs, right? But I just think, and we're going to talk about it. The things that they did, they're going to be able to. Some things that they did, they're going to be able to replicate again. Number one, and then also number two. 2023 was supposed to be the Packers' off year. Like the 2-5 and how they started the year. That's kind of how their year was supposed to go. Not really 9-8. 9-8, I think, is going to be the Packers' off year for the next X amount of years that Jordan Love and Matt LaFleur are a tandem together.
Well, they're just so young, and they're so balanced in everything they do. And obviously, it starts with Jordan Love, and I want to go through the first 9 games for his last 8 game splits. 58.6% completion percentage to 70%. 223 yards per game, which isn't bad, to 268 yards per game. 14 touchdowns to 18 touchdowns, 10 interceptions to 1 interception. Ranking-wise, completion percentage went from 31st to 2nd. Yards per game, 19th to 4th. Touchdown rate, 14th to 2nd, and the interception rate, 30th to 1st. But that interception rate would have been like, it was like a whole percentile better than like the number 1 guy in the NFL. Got that big contract, and it's just time for this young group to roll. Like, they just, when you're playing the Packers, who do you try and stop? Because that's what they do so well, is they are so balanced, right? You have, rookie Jaden Reed led them in receiving with 800 yards. Second-year Romeo Doubs had 674 yards. Rookie Dontavian Wicks had 581. And then Christian Watson was second for the receivers with 422, but he was second in yards per game. He missed time last year. And then their 2 rookie tight ends combined for 77 catches, 800 yards, and 4 touchdowns. So it's just like they don't have that guy who's the clear number 1 target, but everybody is a target on all downs. Even the guys that aren't even, their backups are good targets.
So there are two main things that they did well as the season went on. So you mentioned just the splits, but how did they get better? They got way more explosive as the year went on, where they were last in the NFL on first half drives that featured an explosive play. And they were number 22 in the NFL on all drives that featured an explosive play. From week 10 and on, through the first 9 weeks of the season, they were 32 and 22. And then from week 10 on, they were number 3 in the NFL on first half drives that featured an explosive play. And then they were number 2 on all drives that featured an explosive play. So that's basically they went from 20% in the first half on drives that featured an explosive play to 60% that featured an explosive play. That's a massive, massive improvement. And then also, something that Matt LaFleur is really known for, I think, is the opening script of his games and getting off to that fast start. They did not get off to a fast start during the first 9 weeks of the season. Through the first 9 weeks of the season, they were number 28 in EPA per play during the first 15 plays of the game. They improved from week 10 on to number 1. They were number 1 in success rate, number 1 in EPA per play, number 4 in yards per play, and then also number 4 in third down avoidance as well through the first 15 plays. They got more explosive. They got off to faster starts. So much to the point, Bobby, that at one point they were electing to receive the opening kickoff when they won the toss as opposed to deferring, which you see most NFL teams do.
Which I love. I think every team should receive. Who is your number one guy in this though?
Number one guy in
like
what
who do you say is their number one receiver?
Oh, I think it's without a doubt it's Christian Watson.
Me too. I think you can. I think I do too. Like he gives you that explosive play threat, like you said, and that was a huge part of what they were doing well. But he was, second in yards per game after Jaden Reed, the rookie. But I expect Jaden Reed to kind of stay around that range for his career. Like I don't think Reed's a 800 rookie year guy who puts up 1100 in a second, third year. I think he's someone that is so consistent and solid that he lives in that 600 to 900 yard range his entire career, which is great for where he was picked. But I do think Watson is like the one guy who's that 1,000-yard potential on the team with that size, speed, and ability to create explosives and how he's used as a red zone threat.
Yeah, how I view Christian Watson kind of had like a little bit of a second-half resurgence. I think against the Lions on Thanksgiving, he had a really good game. Maybe he was part of that Chiefs defeat as well, during that really the Packers are here stretch that they had towards the latter part of the year. But when you have hamstring injuries in the month of September for your skill position players, so both Aaron Jones and Christian Watson got those hamstring injuries towards the start of the year. It's like, all right, well, we're going to be in for a long year with those guys, and you may never even get healthy for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
Aaron Jones luckily did for them, but Christian Watson didn't get healthy.
Yeah, that Chiefs game, like you said, was his last game of the regular season. Now you mentioned Aaron Jones. That's my biggest worry though. Because Aaron Jones was a big piece of especially in the playoffs, he dominated.
Yeah, down the stretch he was awesome.
I don't love replacing him with Josh Jacobs and Marshawn Lloyd. Right, and again, the Raiders' offensive line was not bad last year. In fact, in the run game, it worked pretty damn well. And Jones was 7th in yards per carry for running backs last year. Josh Jacobs was 37th. Yep. And Jacobs he had a solid rookie year where he got a lot of volume, and then the year before last he was good. Outside of that, he hasn't been a great back in the NFL.
I know a lot of fans will point to, he didn't have a training camp, and
he's just not dynamic the way Aaron Jones is.
No, he's not.
Even if you like Josh Jacobs, he's not as good as Aaron Jones. Now, if you want to argue, hey, Jones got injured last year, we're betting that he's not going to stay healthy as he gets older. That's one thing. But I do think they downgraded in that room. And then my other thing is with the Jordan Love. I don't want to just say, Jordan Love, can he continue this? My thing is with Love, he does have some random just inaccuracy games.
And some of the numbers do show on target percentage, bad throw percentage, and all that stuff. They're out of all the things like EPA and some of the efficiency stuff is awesome for Jordan Love, but there is some accuracy questions according to those numbers.
And then the other thing would be not just the NFL adjusts year 2, right? People just say that about every quarterback who has a good first year, even though he wasn't a rookie. Is that it got really aggressive down the stretch, right? Yeah. And he made some fucking crazy ass throws.
Yeah.
Will there be an adjustment to stop some of those explosive throws down the field, tight windows type of stuff?
Now, I will say.
And how will they adjust to that? But I think with the way they spread it out so well that I'm not overly worried about it. But I do. It's just I physically can't just say for sure that this guy is just he's one of the best 7-8 quarterbacks in the NFL after a 10-game stretch.
No, and that's fair. And that's 100% fair. But I will say I'm pretty sure they brought down their big throw rate. They brought it down from week 9 and week 10 on, but they just got a whole lot better at converting those opportunities. So, I mentioned how they got more explosive for the second half of the year. It wasn't because they were throwing it down the field more. They were just doing a better job of converting those opportunities. And I think a lot of the NFL heads and a lot of the analytics heads say that like one of the stable metrics year in and year out is how you perform with a clean pocket, not necessarily how you perform under pressure. But I don't know. I kind of do view how you perform under pressure to be extremely, extremely important. And I know it is fluky year in and year out, but let's look at this. Jordan Love, from week 11 on, despite being blitzed at the number one highest rate in the NFL, 41% of his dropbacks. He was 20th. He was number one in total touchdowns. He had the most passing yards. He was number one in EPA per attempt. He had the number one lowest sack plus interception rate at 4.1%, despite being blitzed at 41% of his dropbacks. Second fewest interceptions, second in success rate, second in first down rate, third in completion rate, and third in third down conversion rate. So, I mean, he was being blitzed a lot. I think eventually he should be put on a list of this is a quarterback that you do not blitz, force him to check it down, force him to run 10, 11, 12 play drives, right?
That's my question, though, is once he gets put on that do not blitz rate, that's my question with him. Is when he gets put on that do not blitz list, how does it look then? Right? And again, if you ask me to bet, is Jordan Love it or not, I'm betting he is it 9 times out of 10, but there is just like that little bit of doubt. Not whether he's a good QB, but is he going to be in that that top tier? Like is he going to be in the not, I won't even say Mahomes or Josh, but will he get into that Herbert, like
Dak
that
Prescott.
consistent Herbert level or whatever?
You know, and I'll even go with this too, where you saw the changes that LaFleur made, the self-reflection, like they could have kept running the same offense and be like, no, Jordan Love, you got to make it work.
Yeah,
you got to make this work with what we're giving you. But I think LaFleur, excuse me, such a good coach at adjusting to the personnel, and I know what we got, and we got to make this change, and so that's why I think this is going to work. Even if you have a stretch of time where there's a stretch of 5 games where you have a bad record and they're not doing some good stuff, they could change up what they're doing, and then I think we're going to see good stuff. And if Jordan Love is trusting what LaFleur is going to want to do, unlike Aaron Rodgers, who was pretty hesitant at times to do that, if Jordan Love is going to buy in and you have a young team that's going to buy in, they are a talented team, an offensive line that doesn't have any flashy names, but damn, they put up really good production last year. I think this team is going to be more than fine, and I think they're going to be a dangerous team for a long time.
Absolutely. What do you think about the US offensive line? Because it's crazy how they're able to put this group together. So right now, the projected starting line is Rasheed Walker at left tackle, Elgin Jackson at left guard, who's like one of the best guards in the NFL, Josh Myers at center, probably their weakest guy, Jordan Morgan, the first-round rookie at guard, and then Zach Thomas at right tackle. Who would have thought Zach Thomas, who had all this good film versus guard players and ended up being good? Who would have guessed that? What I think is the most – they lost John Runyon Jr. To the Giants and David Bakhtiari, but Bakhtiari hasn't played. I can't believe they've turned Rasheed Walker into like a solid player.
7th-round pick.
He was awful at Penn State.
7th-round pick as your left tackle.
Like he was a awful football player at Penn State. Like one of the worst guys I ever watched on film. And for the draft, because I don't watch guys that you don't watch guys that go to the 7th round, and they've turned him into a playable, like a solid left tackle. And then Zach Tom's good. Josh Myers is to me their weak link, and then Jordan Morgan. We'll see what he gets as a rookie, but I always think guys going from tackle to guard are better on the interior as rookies than the guys who are just straight up guards. And you think the coaching will do well there.
Yeah, and I think he's got that skill set to do it.
Yeah, and then you have Sean Ryan, who played rotated with John Runyon last year, who's a depth-wise. Royce Newman has started a lot of games for them, but not that good. The only worry is that if Andre Dillard has to go in there, if one of their tackles goes down, I'm probably moving Jordan Morgan out the tackle instead of putting Andre Dillard in there because he was like the worst tackle in the NFL last year. Yeah. But it's a credit to them for the way they've been able. They're the one team that I trust moving guys through between positions in season because they're the only team that's proven they can do it well.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is with this offense line, Jordan Morgan's their only first-round draft pick that they drafted, right?
He's like their first-round draft pick on offense in 11 years.
Which is why I love that pick.
Or since Jordan Love, excuse me.
Which is why I really love that pick because they've spammed defense the last couple of years, and they're like, they really need to kind of beef up the offensive line a little bit, and Jordan Morgan, I think, is going to be a good player for a long time. So, I mean, the thing about their offensive line, I kind of said as you were leading into this, there's like nobody that sticks out.
Elgin Jenkins is one of the best guards in
but
football.
the numbers of like their win rate and the pressure rate that they allowed, it was one of the best in the league last year.
Yeah. Defensively, they rightfully fired Joe Barry, probably a year too late. I mean, it starts up front with them, right? That's their strength, and arguably their only strength, even though I think they improved their safety group a lot with McKinney and Javon Bullard. But, on the edge, now they're changing to a 4-3 versus 3-4. People say that's overrated, but it does matter how you're deploying the front. I think that's the most important part. So you're going to have Rashawn Gary, Preston Smith, and Lucas Van Ness as your edge guys. And then defensive tackle group, you have Kenny Clark, Devontae White, and TJ Slayton. Now, I was actually reading some articles that it seems like Slayton is starting over Devontae White, which is crazy specifically for the fact that they're changing. It'd be one thing if they were staying in that 3-4, but in the 4-3, you kind of want a guy who's just going to be that pass rusher type of guy. And White was awesome last year, right? He was 6th in win rate for defensive tackles, 19th in total pressures. He had the second best pressure rate for defensive tackles in the NFL.
Do you think they want to utilize a nose tackle more? I guess is the question.
But Kenny Clark is he can play in that role at times. He was 7th in total sacks, hits, and pressures. 9th. I would just put both those guys on the field more so than TJ Slayton. And I'm not the biggest TJ. I actually think TJ Slayton is not a horrible defensive tackle, but to me, if I was this group, I would be looking to get after it, and I think the best way to do that is put two guys who were 2nd and 9th in pressure rate last year for defensive tackles, in Kenny Clark and Devontae Wyatt.
Yeah, seems strange.
And I think at some point they will do that. I just think for some reason it seems like they want to add beef up on the interior. And then the edge group, you have Rashawn Gary, who's like in that 10 to 15 range for edge pass rushers. He's really good. Preston Smith, it'll be interesting to see what his role is this year. He's more of a run defender. He's not going to be dropping in the coverage in this new defense the way Joe Barry would have him doing. And then, it's obvious that Lucas Van Ness, their first rounder in the year last year, he needs to take a major step up, right? Like, for this front to reach its potential, Preston Smith is what he is. Gary's great. Clark's great. Wyatt should be playing more. He can be great. And then it's just Lucas Van Ness was a top 15 pick for them. He doesn't need to be great, but he needs to take a step forward over what he was last year.
Yeah, and even Kingsley Enagbare, who he had 2 sacks last year, 6 QB hits, 8 tackles for loss. If you can have the rotation and that gets deeper, it just makes the defense so much more dangerous. So, there's nobody that is gonna flash you with similar to this offensive line. There's nobody that's gonna be like, wow, that guy's such a dominant, 15 sack player. But if you can have 4 guys on a team, 5 guys on a team that you're confident that can get 5, 6, 7 plus sacks every single year, the Packers got it.
Now, there's a lot of great fronts in the NFL. When we did our positional group rankings, you're surprised at how many there is. But they can make their argument right up there with those third best front or 4th best front or wherever you want to rank them. Like they're really good, and it is clearly the strength of this defense because their back end is. Now, again, they desperately need the safety help. They signed Xavier McKinney. I'm excited for him in this defense. They drafted Javon Bullard, who at least will be playable to me as a rookie. I don't think he's someone who's going to flash a ton, but he's going to be able to do his job. There's just the main question for this defense is one, does Jair Alexander play or Eric Stokes stay healthy, and are they any good when they do play? Because Alexander had struggles at times last year. Stokes hasn't lived up to what they expected out of him. They have Dixon in the slot. To me, that is like the decider of how far this team can do is this cornerback group. Mm-hmm. Because this is the team that probably has Super Bowl aspirations for this year, which is crazy to say.
They're still the youngest team in the NFL, by the way.
Yeah, crazy, right? So it's not a failure if this team does exactly what they did last year. But I think if you ask me what holds them back, it's this group right here.
Yeah, that's fair. Especially if you have guys that you don't know if they can stay on the field, right?
Carrington Valentine had to play a lot for them last year. Corey Ballantyne, those guys are still there as backups, but you need Alexander to be what he can be in the NFL. He hasn't hit, went over the hill age-wise. Stokes, needs to be better than what he is, but I think Stokes is really talented. But I do, the safety group improved a ton. I like Quay Walker. I know, he's not everyone's flavor, but to me, the secondary, not even the secondary, the corner specifically is the group I have the biggest questions with on this team.
Yeah, I mean, Eric Stokes has played 12 games over the last 2 years.
Yeah.
So.
And I think, how many games did Jair Alexander play last year? I think it was like 5.
I'll beat you to it. 7.
7, okay. He played 7 games last year, Bobby. New additions and loss. They added Josh Jacobs, Xavier McKinney, Andre Dillard. They lost Aaron Jones, David Bakhtiari, John Runyon Jr., and Devondre Campbell.
I would say the additions outweigh the losses, even though Aaron. It's not that losing Aaron Jones hurts, even though I like Aaron Jones. It's who you replaced him with.
Yeah, but Jacobs has been like a solid back in the NFL.
But still, even just investing money for Josh Jacobs is something that I don't know about that.
Yeah, McKinney was a huge upgrade over them.
Yes,
again,
huge.
And losing Bakhtiari, again, he hasn't been healthy. Runyon was already rotating last year, and they drafted his replacement in the first round, and then Devondre Campbell. The draft class, I kind of like their draft class a lot. You have Jordan Morgan in the first round. You could argue that he was a little overdrafted, but I like him as a player. Edgerrin Cooper at 45, the linebacker at Texas A&M. Yeah. I think he can compete to start right away, especially behind this front. Javon Bullard, who's going to start for them in the second round. Marshawn Lloyd, the running back out of USC. He's a guy who I think can compete for snaps. I think he should be over A.J. Dillon day one. And then the rest of the guys I'm not super familiar with, like Tyrone Hopper, Devin Williams, Jacob Monk.
There's a lot of them.
Yeah, I don't have write-ups on those guys. I kind of unironically like Michael Pratt, the QB at Tulane, and then Kalen King at the 7th round. So, but I think those first 4 guys are definitely year one contributors, and then the rest I'm going to say I don't know because I'm not the most well versed on Keaton Oladapo. Who's your X factor for this team?
Oh, it's Christian Watson. I think his ability to stretch the field, his ability to be explosive, I think it changes what this Packers offense can be. Like, hey, if you want to talk about a worry for regression for the Green Bay Packers, is that, hey, they maybe don't have the Jimmies and Joes, where you kind of need somebody who's going to win. It's kind of great to have a collection of guys that you think are number ones and spread it out, but I think there's got to get to a point where you got to have somebody that's going to be able to fucking win. And I think Christian Watson is a guy that can help make this Packers run of good offense more sustainable. So Christian Watson, stay healthy, be an explosive play threat, try and challenge at all 3 levels of the field too. Be more of a friend to Jordan Love this year, because the weeks in which he was there and he was healthy, it was fun, and you saw some really key wins against some really good opponents last year.
I went between 2 guys. I wanted to do Rasheed Walker because, just do it again, because if you don't, then your blind side's not protected by if you're Jordan Love, and I think that's huge for his playing style. But I'm going to go Jair Alexander. Play well when you're there.
Yeah,
because you're desperately needed in this cornerback group. So I will go Jair Alexander. Rasheed Walker as a 1B. Just do it again. We don't need to be special. Just do it again. Over under 9.5 wins.
I'm going over. I think this team can even win 11. I think they can win 11. I think they can have 11 wins and still finish second place in the AFC North.
Yeah, I mean, they won 9 games last year. I'm going over as well. And this is why, as much as I love the Chicago Bears, I'm like, hey, man, because at one point in the offseason, I was like, I think the Bears made the playoffs. And then when you start actually putting it together, I'm like, I've got the Lions and the Packers over them. So yep. I'm putting them at 9.5. I'm putting them over at 9.5 too. Yeah, so over. All right, that is the Green Bay Packers, and this is Football Today.